Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com. Welcome to WCW Wednesday. Every Wednesday here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, I'm looking back at the history of World Championship Wrestling and giving my thoughts on some of the company's more memorable moments. Today's topic is the NWO. Who could forget the New World Order? I've come up with a list, in fact, my top 20 greatest moments in the history of the NWO. And what I'm going to do is try to include as many links as possible to the various segments. So check out the description box on YouTube for this video, and I'll have those links there posted. Let's start off with the very beginning of the NWO, and that's, of course, when Scott Hall made his shocking debut on the May 27th edition of Monday Nitro in 1996. This was a huge surprise for a lot of people because unless you were reading the dirt sheets or you were reading something on the internet, and back then the internet was still in its infancy and there weren't a whole lot of websites out there. This was pre-NoDQ.com for that matter. It was a big shock to many of the fans. Scott Hall came out, he just interrupted a match. This was something that had never been done before, where a wrestler from another company comes out through the crowd, gets in the ring, and basically calls out the company and issues a challenge to them. And Scott Hall came out. It looked like he was Razor Ramon. He had the hair slicked back. He had the toothpicks. He had the vest on. He talked with the accent. So if you're a viewer at home, you're thinking that this is Razor Ramon being sent from the WWE to challenge WCW. And then 2 weeks later, Kevin Nash came out and joined Scott Hall, and the two of them issued a challenge once again to WCW. And the fans at home thought that Kevin Nash was Diesel, and they thought that Scott Hall was Razor Ramon. And WWE ended up taking legal action here because they felt that WCW was creating confusion and making people think that WWE was working with WCW, and then there was some sort of interpromotional thing here, which wasn't the case. So at the Great American Bash pay-per-view, Eric Bischoff called out the Outsiders, Hall and Nash, and flat out asked them, "Do you work for the WWE?" And of course, Hall and Nash said no, and the challenge was accepted. And at that point, Kevin Nash powerbombed Eric Bischoff through the announce table or through the concession table, whatever it was, and war was declared. This led up to the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, a night that will live on in wrestling infamy. July 7th, 1996, Hulk Hogan came out. You all know what happened. He became the third man. He joined the NWO. This was perhaps the greatest heel turn of all time. Hulk Hogan, the guy who built wrestling in the 1980s with Vince McMahon and the WWF, here he was turning his back on all the Hulkamaniacs, turning his back on the red and yellow, and joining Hall and Nash, and they formed the New World Order, this renegade group that was planning to completely destroy WCW. And we saw several promos from Hulk Hogan and Hall and Nash, and then we saw the first of what would be many sneak attacks. The NWO ambushing the WCW stars. WCW Nitro was being taped at the Disney MGM studios, and you had Hall and Nash attack several of the WCW guys in the back. Many of you will remember this segment, especially the part where Kevin Nash picked up Rey Mysterio and launched him like a dart right into the trailer. I mean, that was a classic moment right there. And then this was building up to Hog Wild, and Hulk Hogan defeated the Giant to win the WCW title, and he spray painted the WCW title with the NWO letters. And a few weeks later, the Giant of all people would end up joining the NWO, and this was a crazy segment. You had Hogan, Hall, and Nash beating up the Dungeon of Doom, the Four Horsemen. Randy Savage tried making the save, and it was just chaos. You had fans littering the ring, and it really felt like things were completely out of control. The NWO destroyed the announce desk and just trashed the whole ringside area. I mean, it was at the time it was extremely cutting edge. And on WWF, you still had the Godwins, and here on Nitro, you had the NWO just Raising Hell. And then the following week, we thought that Sting had joined the NWO. We heard Sting's voice talking to Ted DiBiase in a limousine, and then when Lex Luger came out to investigate, somebody who was apparently Sting jumped Luger, and of course it wasn't the real Sting, but this led to the whole distrust storyline where nobody trusted Sting and Sting felt betrayed, and he went away and he became the Crow Sting. He had the black and the white, and that he created that whole new character. So I mean, this was a very significant moment, not just for the NWO but Sting as well, and would be a major part of WCW storylines. And then on the September 23rd, 1996 edition of Nitro, you had the NWO completely taking over the show. Some of you might remember when the Main Event Mafia took over Impact. That was basically a knockoff of this NWO takeover. The NWO takeover was the first of its kind. They came out, they beat the crap out of Randy Savage, they whipped him with a Slim Jim, and you had the Big Show, who was the Giant back then. He became the announcer for the show. You had the NWO take over the broadcast booth and hold Eric Bischoff hostage, and this was great. And I mean, Eric Bischoff was taking shots at WWE on commentary. When Hogan came out, he said that Hulk Hogan claims that any promotion he has ever worked for, he is the only reason that they have ever achieved any success. So Bischoff was able to take shots at WWE. They brought out the newest member of the NWO, Vince, who of course was the former Virgil. So I mean, this was just great television right here. I mean, this whole Nitro, the NWO would run in matches and just continue to make a mockery out of WCW. I mean, I loved the whole show. I mean, it was tremendous. And a couple of weeks later, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage continued their feud leading up to Halloween Havoc, and Hogan ended up beating down Randy Savage and making Miss Elizabeth watch it. And Hogan ended up drawing a crime scene sketch outline around Randy Savage, and the crowd was continuing to throw crap in the ring, and Hogan was just really coming into his own as a heel here. I mean, he was at the top of his game, and a month later would be a turning point with the NWO when Eric Bischoff would join the group. After several months of being against it, Bischoff ended up joining the force, and this was the start of the Roddy Piper-Hulk Hogan feud, and this led up to a contract signing at World War III. Roddy Piper challenged Hulk Hogan, Bischoff came out, and then finally Hulk Hogan came out, and Hogan, once again, just being a tremendous heel, made Roddy Piper show everybody the scar from his hip surgery, and then of course Hogan beats up Roddy Piper, hits him in the hip with a steel chair. So just great build up to their big match at Starrcade, and then the night after Starrcade, you had the Giant being kicked out of the NWO. Another really well done segment, another segment where things really felt like they were out of control. Hulk Hogan and the NWO beat up Roddy Piper. They wanted the Giant to chokeslam Piper. Giant would not do it. And Giant wanted his title shot against Hulk Hogan because he had won the World War III Battle Royal. Hogan said, "Sure, you got your shot." Then as soon as he got out of the ring, he had everybody get in there and get the Giant and destroy him. Another classic NWO segment. And around this time, the NWO started... some people would say the beginning of the downfall of the NWO was when they started adding too many people to the group. But one defection from WCW to the NWO that I really enjoyed was when Buff Bagwell joined the NWO. Eric Bischoff came out and said that the WCW guys had 30 days to turn their WCW contracts into NWO contracts. And you had Buff Bagwell come out and Scotty Riggs. Buff Bagwell started high-fiving everybody. Scotty Riggs was confused. Buff Bagwell dropped him. And, the crowd just started chanting NWO. So, I mean, these guys were supposed to be heels, but, I mean, the crowd was very much into all this stuff. And Going into 1997, we had more classic moments. The first that I remember was when Eric Bischoff fired referee Randy Anderson. Randy Anderson had come out during the the NWO sold out pay-per-view, and helped the Steiner brothers win the tag team titles. So of course Eric Bischoff the next night fired him, and Eric Bischoff was just excellent as a heel here. And more cutting edge stuff, like people when they think about in wrestling, when people use insider terms, they tend to associate that with Vince Russo. But I mean, this was before Russo was really getting going, and you had Scott Hall, making references. First, you had Randy Anderson saying that he was just out there doing his job, and then Scott Hall says, no, the Steiners were the ones doing the job. So, I mean, stuff like this, these little insider references, more cutting-edge television, and, kayfabe being broken and all that stuff. So, I mean, it was really interesting to watch. And then leading up to Super Brawl, we had the Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper rematch. And another great segment was when Roddy Piper brought out his son Colt, who was just a little kid at the time, and Hulk Hogan came out and was just on fire as a heel. He was just insulting Piper right in front of his kid, and people tend to knock Hogan for his acting sometimes, but I mean Hogan's acting was just really good here. Hogan was just one of his best heel performances of all time. He was just he said, "You make me sick that you're hiding behind a little kid." I mean, Hogan was just this evil heel, bad guy. I mean, I loved it. And then Randy Savage joined the NWO and actually helped Hulk Hogan retain the title against Piper. And then the next night after Super Brawl, Randy Savage officially joined the group. Elizabeth came out, they reunited, and the NWO laid out Diamond Dallas Page, and Randy Savage was now a full-fledged member of the group. And the NWO continued to expand, not just in WCW, but in mainstream as well. You had Dennis Rodman joining the group, and there was an episode of Monday Nitro in Chicago when Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan came out. They called out Lex Luger and the Giant, and the NWO with another classic beatdown, this time with Dennis Rodman getting involved. And, the crowd littering the ring, just your typical NWO things out of control, and just must-see television. The NWO, I mean, that was the thing to watch during this period. And then you had the NWO's Four Horsemen parody. This would be the first of many parodies that we would see during the Attitude Era and in WCW. You had the NWO coming out. You had Kevin Nash. And you had Syxx dressed up as Ric Flair. Kevin Nash was Arn Anderson. And, they were supposed to be heels, but, I mean, they were just so damn entertaining, mocking the Horsemen. And as it turns out, this generated some real-life backstage heat. I mean, that's how personal it got. And, yeah, the lines were being blurred between reality and fiction. And you weren't even sure what was real and what wasn't at this point. And then the last moment I want to talk about here is when Ravishing Rick Rude made his shocking appearance on Nitro. And this was the first time in history, because Raw was a taped show, you had Rick Rude on both Raw and Nitro the same exact night. And Rick Rude came out and basically called WWE the Titanic, and Bret Hart, who had just been screwed by Vince McMahon, was jumping ship and jumping to the refuge of the NWO. And, it was definitely a water cooler moment, something that people were talking about the next day. So there you have it. Those are my top moments of the NWO in their original run during 1996 and 1997. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. youtube.com/NoDQCAW. You can tweet me at Aaron Rift or at NoDQDOTCOM using the WCW hashtag. And you can leave a comment, leave a question. You can leave any suggestions for future topics here on WCW Wednesday. And I will see you guys next Wednesday for more.